Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the 3P's podcast, brought to you by Zeus Fire and Security, where our mission is to protect people, property, and profits. I'm your host, Scott Elkins, CEO of Zeus, and today I'm thrilled to speak with a true specialist in B2B marketing and digital transformation, Ben Kalkman, founder and CEO of Rocket Media. Ben launched Rocket Media back in 2003 with the goal of delivering top-tier marketing to service-based companies starting in the home services space. What I love is how Rocket Media has stayed focused on being boutique and keeping the team tight, personal, and results-driven. Today, we're going to talk about how B2B marketing is evolving in industries like ours, how digital channels and AI are shifting the game, and what actionable strategies companies like yours and ours can deploy right now to capture more value. Ben, thanks so much for joining us. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for being such a great host.
Thank you, Ben. I'm glad you're here. You know, when we talked last night, we talked a little bit about the origin of Rocket Media. I love origin stories. Yeah. Share your origin story with us.
For sure. Okay, so I go back. I think origins are great when you have a little bit of context. So college, I went to Kansas State University. Go Wildcats. I went there because I thought I was going to be an architect.
Okay.
Which is one of the best schools in architecture in Kansas. But I quickly discovered that I was actually a graphic designer, and that's what I went into. So I've got a very strong design and creative background. Going into the fields after working for some corporations in the Kansas City area, I quickly discovered that the corporate model, and then we're talking large corporations like GE actually is where I was.
Got it.
They're great companies and organizations, but if you're an idea guy, sometimes you're a little stifled in those situations. And so I had this entrepreneurial spirit that I had to do my own thing. So my wife and I kind of just pulled everything up and moved to Arizona, of all places. Never really thought about Arizona, but that's where we landed.
Okay.
And we started something new. I remember it was May 2nd, 2003. We were sitting in my living room deciding, should I go work for another corporation or should I start my own thing? And we decided to go forward with a new thing. And that's how Rocket Media was started.
Yeah, so scary time for all of us starting a business, right?
Yeah.
Like you're on your own starting Rocket Media.
Yeah.
What are those early days like?
Well, so I think if you're an entrepreneur, which I know you are as well, you're a risk taker.
Sure.
And so sometimes when you're in that mode, you don't really think about all the logistical things. I think that's one of the beautiful things about being an entrepreneur is you're a little bit like an ostrich. Your head's in the sand. You don't really think about all the environmental things that are going around you.
Yeah.
You just have an idea. So that was me. And I probably had no right of starting my own business because I had really no business DNA in me other than some mentors that had shown me the ways and things like that. So there was a lot of learning to be had. And let me tell you, like anything homegrown in a startup like that, I had to bootstrap it all.
Yeah.
And so I found myself having to work for a handyman to keep the lights on, right? And so I would go early in the morning to Scottsdale, Arizona and work for the handyman. I was tiling, I was roofing, I was painting, you name it. I got a lot of trades in me now. And then I'd come home around 3 and it would be Rocket Media by night, that stuff during the day. And I did that for about 2 years just to get to where we needed to go.
Yeah, I think the role of grit in entrepreneurship is often underplayed.
Yeah.
But without grit, entrepreneurs don't make it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it really kind of builds that character. I think when you really want something and you have to work hard for it like that, that dream becomes even more and more desirable.
Yeah. So it's pretty clear to me from speaking with you that Rocket Media, and maybe you didn't realize that there was a chance it wasn't going to work out, but you kind of knew early on, hey, I'm going to make this thing happen. So what's that first customer like, that first employee? Like, what do the early days really look like?
So I'm a big believer in fate and destiny, and I just lucked out, really. Let's just call it that. My first contact, my first client of significance, I should say, was a heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, solar company in Phoenix, Arizona called Parker & Sons, which started off as just a pretty decent size, but not huge operation. Paul Kelly, the owner of that operation, and I kind of just connected, and we made a lot of great connections together.
What made him take a chance on somebody with really no background?
Yeah, I don't know. I should ask him that someday because, of all the options that are out there, he just saw something in me, I think, and I gravitated toward that, and we hit it off. And that's kind of part of how life works, I think. There's a lot of relationship things that happen, and so anyway, we built this great thing together. We helped build the initial Parker & Sons websites and all the marketing. Then in 2005, it evolved, and this was the time when directories and internet directories weren't really existing.
Yeah.
So we created something that was called To Fix It. And that was really the idea behind that is if you were to meet your neighbor across the fence and they said, hey, who do you use for this or that? There would be that direct referral, right? there wasn't really anything like that out there other than your neighbors. And so
Sure.
we created this referral directory kind of thing that's like, here's the top of the top. We've vetted them. We kind of check them all out, and we give you this book directory that's got them all listed in there so that you would have a resource for your home to get all the things done that you needed for your home.
So I've got in my head like an Angie's List.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm glad you said that. So that's kind of exactly what it ended up being. And we took that and built it in Phoenix, and then in Atlanta, and then we were in San Diego, and then we found ourselves in front of some investors, and it was us and another company that were looking to get taken over.
Sure.
And it was the other company that got the nod. And funny enough, that was Angie's List.
Wow. How
yeah.
about that?
So funny story, because who knows? 2Fix It could have been a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But again, things happen for reasons. And so that actually worked out to be the best for all of us. And so 2Fix It still existed. It got kind of sold and changed names. Now it's called My Guy in Phoenix. Still evolves. Still a great solution. But that's what catalyzed me into the home services space, really. Because with that, I was able to work with all these different trades, including security.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So before we get to security, because I definitely want to get there, what I know a little bit about your origin story is that your company from almost day one had a passion about giving back. And I find that across almost all entrepreneurs I speak with. It's not enough just to grow your own business, but we're out there helping others as well. It's really important to you and Rocket. And I'm assuming it's still important today.
It is. It's one of those things where I feel like when you're given great responsibility, I'm going to sound like a movie for a second here. When you're given that responsibility, I think it's your duty to give back to others. You know, I think that the wealth and blessings that you're giving in life, if you don't share those, a little bit of a karma, what goes around comes around. And so I'm a big believer in that as well. And I try to do as many things as we possibly can, not just through actionable things like, packing food or food soup kitchens and stuff like that, which we do some of those things as well. But we created basically a program where it allows people to nominate nonprofits that are in need of marketing services. So it could be a website, it could be a digital marketing plan, whatever it might be that would help them.
Is this in a certain geography across the country?
It's actually nationwide.
Wow.
So we really open it up. And so anybody that wants to nominate their nonprofit to be considered for that can do that. Then our team will pick the top 3 based on whatever criteria we have. And it changes year to year. And once we select those 3, we put it back out to the public and we let them vote for the one that should get the win. And so that's where it really gets interesting, because all those nonprofits kind of rally together and they want to get everybody to vote because they would love to get this. And so that's how it works.
Yeah, there's some marketing in there as well.
Well, there is. I mean, everything's got a little bit of taste to that, but doing it in the true form of helping others, that's our real passion.
For sure.
It works. And you're using your talents and your services that you know you can do well for the use for others that grow their organizations.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any coincidence that I'm thinking about our industry, and we'll talk about the security space in just a minute. I don't think there's any coincidence that those that I serve with on boards are participate in association events with, that are giving back to the industry, tend also to be some of the most successful companies in our space.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's a
There's
coincidence.
probably a little coincidence there for sure. Yeah.
For sure. So you went from home services and then you were introduced to security, or maybe you found security. How did that happen?
Well, again, so that 2Fix It space was all things home services. And there's probably about a little over 120 or so different trades, if you think about it, for your home, from yes to yes. Right? There's all kinds of spectrums. Security is one of those. And so when we got to Atlanta, I was introduced to Ackerman Security.
Sure.
That was and then Ackerman, Jim Callahan was the operator there, and what an amazing guy. He's still out there kicking it around and doing great things. Well, anyway, he and I connected, and we were able to help support their organization, and that's really got me into the security space. So this is around 2005. And from there, it's an interesting space. All home services are like this. For lack of better terms, it's a good old boy network, right?
Yeah.
It's an everybody network, but it's a good old boy network in the sense that who you know is how you get connected with people, right? Yeah. Like commercial, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what really kind of grew that. And as we worked with Ackerman, then we were able to work with like Bates Security and those guys.
Sure.
And on goes the list of people that get introduced to us. And I've found that if you do what you say you're going to do, provide great customer service, and are upfront about the good and the bad, people respect that, you know? And so that's how we operate.
Yeah, being honest about the process makes a difference, because there are going to be bumps in the road. We always talk about, you can begin a job well, it can be a little messy in the middle, but if it ends well, people forget about the messy part in the middle.
They do. Nothing builds trust more than owning your own mistakes.
Yeah, for sure.
And just calling it out. And because I think a lot of times people will not do that, and then that creates the gray area, right? I call it sludge. The sludge starts to build, and next thing you know, you have weird relationships and trust doesn't keep going.
Yeah, there's a theory that it was part of a training session I was in many, many years ago by a college professor from, I think it was UCal Berkeley, although I'm not sure, maybe it was Chicago Haas School of Business, but he talked about you get more credit for getting it right the second time than you do the first time, right? Customer pays you to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
If there's a mistake and you get it right the second time, you can really build trust, maybe even more than getting it right the first time.
For sure, because it's how you handle those things, right?
Yeah. It says a little bit who you are as a company, who you are as a leader.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're in the security space.
We are.
But it really, from a marketing standpoint, I'm guessing is somewhat agnostic, whether it's home services or security or another type of business. You're trying to bridge the gap between the consumer, whether it's residential or commercial, and the business that wants that consumer to be looking at them.
Yeah.
That's changed a lot since 2003. You've been in business now for 23 years.
Yep.
An overnight success in 23 years, right?
Yeah, right. Yep.
So the marketing strategies, take me through marketing strategies 2003, and then let's just, if it's easy, 2013-ish, and then we'll talk about 2026, where we are now. A lot of change happens in the last 20 years.
It really has. And so, first of all, focus is important, I think. So one of the things that we quickly figured out is that we needed to be focused on who we help, because we can't help everybody. Like I just mentioned, there's like 120 different home service categories. So we focus on 5: HVAC, plumbing, electrical, solar, and security. Those are our big 5. And so we've narrowed our focus just to those. And why we would do that? Well, because they all have very similar client bases. They all have a little bit of overlap. Some of our partners like Honeywell and others have kind of created platforms, or Residio now has created platforms where there's a lot of cross overlap in those industries. So they see it too. So again, a little bit of dumb luck in this space, and the fact that I kind of fell into those, and I'll get to that too in the future here, but just the fact that they're recession resilient, they're essential services, that we've gone through all these different tragic times. Boy, I've been fortunate in that way to be part of these different networks and organizations. Yeah. As far as the marketing that you asked about, though, it's definitely evolved. You go back to the days of Yellow Books. You remember those days,
sure,
right?
Of course.
So it was the AAA double truck game that we all played. Yeah. That was the first directory kind of internet world, right?
Yeah, by the way, my business was Universal Atlantic Systems, still is as part of Zeus, but you wasn't a great letter to start.
No, so you did that AAA version of it, right? Yeah, okay. So, then you go into what we have now is the web, and the web's really evolved over the time. When you think of the evolution of different changes, and we can talk about AI in a minute, but really, if you go from the static websites that we had, and then we moved to responsive websites, and then we moved to mobile websites, which are part of the responsive, and now we go to apps and mobile phones, it just keeps evolving the technology.
So take me from static to responsive. So static website feels like a brochure?
Yeah, a brochure site, but it basically doesn't adjust with your browser. Before the days of mobile, we just needed the site to be uniformly one size, because desktops were, pretty much the same. Most people had the same monitor size. Yeah. So we just built it in that format. Then comes responsive sites, because it now needs to scale and adjust based on any device that you had, from your watch to your desktop and beyond, And so that was a big shift. And a lot of, everybody was into that, and everybody had to get that going. And then, of course, we mold to the next version, which is what we're in today. So I tell people that we've been living in the library phase. And now today we're in the answer phase. So library phase, you would go and search for something, and Google or whatever search engine you're using would show you a list of sites that were directories or locations for getting the answer you needed. That was their job. That's how it worked. It still exists today, but it's now being pushed down, because now we're in the answer phase with the advent of what's going on with AI, right? So now when we search, we get the answer first, and it's comprised of a bunch of answer result pages. Yeah. And so that's really the big challenge today with what we're doing in marketing and how we're adjusting our sites.
So from the customer standpoint, or from the vendor standpoint that you're working with, you want to ensure, to the extent possible, that, like, I know that Zeus, we want to ensure that we show up in the answer site. So how do we make that happen?
Yeah, well, it's evolving as well every day. It seems like this is one of the fastest transformational periods we've seen in a lot of technology for a while. I mean, it seems like every day there's a new version of chat or whatever program or whatever LLM you're looking at. So the answer is today, at this point, you want to be more involved with FAQs. There's a lot of information that we're learning that the listings, the management system, so the AI bots are looking at what's at the top of the page. So the first 150 or so characters or letters of the site is what it's pulling for its directory. So it can't read the entire site. I mean, it does, but it doesn't index the entire site for its results, for those quick answers. So we're finding that we need to bolster the top of the site with the information that we need in a quick condensed format. We need FAQs throughout the entire site. We need to be on more than just Google. We need to be in all these different directories now too, because things like Yelp or Reddit or other directories that are out there are all being part of this aggregate. And by the way, we have a lot of multimedia that are being answered too.
Yeah.
So when you do these searches, you see videos from YouTube. You sometimes see podcasts like we're doing today, as well as graphical things. So we need to expand the amount of content that we're creating in order for us to be fully exposed to these different areas and have AI see us as the answer, because that's the key now. We want to be seen as the answer.
Yeah. So what's the strategy when you meet with a company like ours, another security company, home services, whatever it is? What's the strategy look like from maybe just getting started to this is where we'd like you to go?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just get started with we're going to be in the answers. It's a long way away.
Yeah.
How do we get started?
First thing I always ask is capacity. You have to understand what is the capacity of the organization and what does success look like. I think that's one thing that a lot of people kind of miss. So if we didn't know what winning looked like together, then there's a good chance at the end of the day, when you come and look at the results, you may be upset because it didn't meet your expectations, but I may not have known what your expectations were.
Yeah, we believe deeply and begin with the end in mind. What do we want? And then we can work back from there.
Yes. So it's no different with how you do your marketing, right? So you figure that out, which seems common sense, but believe it or not, a lot of times that's just kind of like, well, we just need to get ads running. We need leads. Great. Well, how many? What's success look like? So once we understand that, then we can build a strategy to use different tactics, whatever they are, to support that volume. And once we agree on that, well, now we're set up for success, right? Now it's execution. And it's a lot easier to focus on execution than it is on what's the goal. And I think what we're learning in the business world, of course, is in this period, it evolves. A lot of times it's seasonally, right? Because we have seasonal changes within our organization, weather-based or just even buying periods for that matter. But also it changes based on the customer's demands because their needs are changing. So we have to be willing to adapt and not have a set it and forget it marketing plan these days. A lot of times when we do our annual planning, we're looking at, like, of course, the next year, but we'll maybe look at a 3-year, 5-year, sometimes even 10-year forecast. I'm telling you, it's almost hard to do a 5-year these days, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm like, well, if we can get this year and maybe 3 years out, we're good. But even still, that crystal ball for 3 years is pretty hard to read. So anyway, back to the marketing side of things. You really want to make sure you focus on what success is. Then you can put together a strategy plan that supports your goals. And we want to talk about a couple other things. What is the persona or the type of customers you're looking to sell to? In the residential and commercial spaces, there's probably 4 or 5 or maybe more different types of personas, people that you're trying to sell to that would want to be your particular buyers. You could get 1,000 leads that are all door kickers, but I could give you 20 leads that are buying from you. That's way better.
I'll
right?
take the 20.
Yeah, exactly. So we really have to focus on what our content and who we're positioning ourselves to be talking to. And if we can figure out those different channels, now we can create content and website pages and all the media assets that we need to attract them to the right type of programs that you can provide. And we do that for both the commercial residential space to help support your business.
Yeah. So as we work with more sophisticated vendors and vendors work with more sophisticated businesses, I think we've shifted from a marketing standpoint of saying, hey, let's get eyeballs into let's get tangible results.
Yes.
Maybe you could help us understand how we get to those results.
I'm glad you asked that question because this is one of the key things about marketing in general, but even specifically digital marketing. So it used to be how many clicks, how many leads are you going to get me? And that's still important. We still want to know what our cost per lead is and what our CPLs are for that type of thing. But we really need to focus now on revenue. And the sophistication of attribution tracking in today's worlds with all the different CRMs that are out there and how you monetize those allows us to see customers from the first touch point to the end when they actually transact. Because often it takes more than just a day or two to get a transaction, right?
For sure.
There are, of course, instances where you've got a shopping cart and you can buy it and it's transactional. But most time in your space and in most home services space, it's not overnight, especially in the commercial side of business.
Where Zeus sits.
Yeah. So let's just say a customer sees a billboard one day, and the next day they're going to get an email campaign for you, and maybe they got a direct mail piece because you're doing that too, and maybe they saw your TV commercial, and all these things kind of build the story for the experience that customer has with your brand. And we have to think about that as a full story. And we want to track as much as that we possibly can. And that's the real goal within marketing is understanding that attribution funnel. But then getting it down to the point where we can say, okay, that particular customer, it costs us perhaps this much to get them through the funnel. And this is what we actually sold. So now we know what our return on investment is and see true attribution tracking. Make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. The way we look at it at Zeus, and I think maybe the way a lot of your customers or prospects will look at it is, at some point, we want marketing to be completely paid for by the results that it produces.
Absolutely.
Right? Because otherwise, it's nice to have your name out there. It's nice to be known. but it's also nice to generate revenue.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember there's a funnel, right? So I always tell there's a top, middle, and bottom of the funnel that we're looking at. And those top of the funnel activities, let's say billboards and things like that are really brand-based exposure, they're not going to generate a ton of revenue, but they're going to generate a lot of activity and interest in your brand. The middle of the funnel is the education side, right? So that's where we're building a lot of blog articles, and we're building like white papers and infographics and things like that help support people in their discovery. I always think in the very top of the funnel, it's people that have like realized they have a problem and they're trying to figure out what that problem is.
Yeah.
The middle of the funnel is, okay, I've got this problem. Can I fix it myself? And so they're looking at their own resources, and you're going to build that content to help them support there. The bottom of the funnel is, okay, I kind of know what my problem is. I know I can't do it myself. Who should I call?
Yeah.
And so that's really where we focus. And that bottom of the funnel is where the magic happens for the businesses. But you kind of have to have all three, right? In order to nurture them to get to that point in whatever you're selling.
Yeah, so it does create a tricky situation, I'm assuming, for some of your prospects, some of your customers, because if you really do need all three, you're going to start making an investment long before you see your return.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a commitment, I'm assuming, that you're looking for from your customers.
There is. And again, depending on where you are in business, if you're a newer business, you're probably going to focus on the bottom of the funnel right away and just kind of focus there because you need the activity to build those revenue resources. As the more mature company comes into play, you can go into the second tier and up to the top tier. And as you kind of build that funnel out, you'll see a little bit of a growth pattern that happens because you always want to be filling all parts of that funnel so they keep coming into your sales leads. Yeah. And so we really look at it based on where you are and where your business is and how actively proactive, I should say, you are in nurturing those leads. It comes down to how your calls are handled, what CRM you're using to be auto-response and tracking everything. It's funny enough, some people still today don't have CRMs that are sophisticated enough to take on this attribution tracking.
Yeah.
And so for a marketer coming in like that, that's one of the first questions I have too is like, well, how are we going to track this together? What's going to be our litmus of success, right? So and there's lots of variations out there for that.
So you can't get through a podcast, can't get through a dinner table conversation without talking about AI.
Yes.
So let's have the conversation.
Okay.
AI is changing your space as much as it is ours.
Yeah.
We're excited about it. Are you excited about it? And if you are, how are you building it in to your offering?
Yeah, so I'm very passionate about AI. It's been around for quite a while. We've been using it. We're Google Premier Partners, which we're really proud of being that. And so what does that mean? Well, that means we've been access to a lot of Google just different plans and promotional campaigns and systems that they offer, which have been part of AI for a long while. It's just now in the last year or two, probably, we've really seen an explosion in that in the mainstream of all things. For us in particular, we've created what we call Rocket AI Labs, and that's a platform that allows our team to experiment and try different things. I personally am trying things all the time. I'm running experiments on different ways I can implement things with my own properties, as well as sometimes for clients as well, if they're willing to test things as well. So we get into a lot of the content pieces. Today, content is still seen as a little taboo if you were to do the whole thing with AI only.
Yeah.
Right? It's interesting if you think about where the listings, the LLMs are today. They're still gathering and learning from us humans, the experts. You and I are both truth tellers within our industry today, and our job is to be able to filter the noise and be able to tell our customers and the AI agents what's accurate, what's not. Yeah. They need us for that still. They're still learning from us, if you think about that. So content that's written with AI is simply just generating content from itself, which doesn't grow.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah,
That's why there's so much desire to have human-written content. Well, and that's all good and great, but a lot of people have seen the value of using AI to create content. So we're kind of in this melding pot system right now where we've got some folks that are doing all content with AI, and they possibly are going to be penalized in some degree for doing that because it's very detectable, right? Then you've got folks that are doing kind of a hybrid, and that's kind of where we are right now too, where we use AI to ideate concepts and outlines. We'll even have it write the content, and then we'll send it to a writer who then edits the entire content so that it becomes humanized and it becomes the litmus of what's truth and what's not, right?
Yeah.
Then we go through and have our clients proof it and approve it, and then it gets posted. So it's kind of that middle ground, a little bit of gray area. I suspect in the next year or two, AI content will be fully evolved. We'll see less and less human need for that, but still have to have the truth tellers.
Yeah, we talk about AI at Zeus as co-intelligence.
Yes.
We don't see it replacing us. We see it riding shotgun with us to help us do our jobs better.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be the same with the marketing pieces as well.
It will. And so as you think about the different aspects of marketing, you've got the planning and the competitive analysis. You've got a lot of ability to now do market research, right? And so I'm constantly using different LLMs and going out and researching different projects, and the key is how you ask the questions and how you prompt them to do these things. So you want to make sure you ask things like, hey, keep it factual, keep it, citations and all these different things so that the content you're provided doesn't get erroneous and become not trustworthy. Then once you have that data, you can then create information based on that research that you did, right? And so therefore you're getting a much stronger article or whatever you're building that's useful for your industry. So I find that to be a very, very effective way of doing that. It doesn't just stop there though. From image creation, from video creation, to attribution tracking, reporting. I mean, the list just goes on and how we're automating. If it's something that's digital, there's a way you can probably make it work faster and better with AI. Yeah. And so then we get into the human side of this, right? Okay, so a lot of people have asked me like, well, is my job in jeopardy? Am I going to be replaced by AI? And I tell people mostly no, but you might get replaced by a human that understands and uses AI better than you do.
Sure, but that's been happening, right? That's been happening since the beginning of time.
It really has. It really has. I use things like the Industrial Revolution as an example, right? So we go to look at that time. Henry Ford has this amazing production line that he builds to build these amazing cars, futuristically kind of building in that time period. Humans are doing all the work. Fast forward, suddenly we have automation and production line. Yeah. So all those that were on the production line then had to either step up their game and be able to control and help work with the automation, or they had to find something else to do.
Yeah, somebody had to build those machines, somebody had to service the machines, somebody had to sell the machines.
Yeah.
All kinds of jobs were created.
Yeah, that's right. And so, that's the evolution. And we're seeing that same thing happen right now. Yeah. Right. There's been so many different periods of time. If you look back on history, and I love history, of where we see these evolutions, and we're at that right now. We talk about what is it?
Y2K.
Thank you, Y2K. Yeah. That was another period where everybody was frantic that was going to change everything.
The world was going to come to an end.
A lot of money was spent, a lot of investments, and then that came and went, and people were like, that didn't happen so bad.
It created an 18-month scare.
Yeah.
And a minute after midnight, in the year 2000, January 1st, 2000, it was over.
It was over.
Yeah.
Very anticlimactic. And there you go. Not to say that AI is like that, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of periods in time where we look at the evolution of things, technology specifically, where we get all excited and anxious and nervous for things we don't understand. And as it evolves, now this one has a little more legs on it. We've got a lot of futuristic storytellers especially in the cinema world, where you've got movies like, I'll use Back to the Future as an example. How much of that is now actually in our world? I mean, and a lot of people have been trying to do specifically things like the hoverboard and the shoes and the coat and all that kind of stuff, and they exist now.
Go back to Star Trek. Almost everything in Star Trek.
Yes, that's a great one.
With the exception of, I guess, intergalactic travel.
Yes. You can't beam me up yet, but yep.
Yeah. Almost everything is here. It's crazy.
Okay, and so that's exactly where we are today. You think of like Terminator, right? The robots, and they're training those. I would predict that next year, this time, probably we'll see a lot of people with robots in their world. Whether it be a desk robot or some type of autonomous thing. We have robotic vehicles already, right?
Sure.
Robotic planes are on their way. I see that in Dubai's got hover police squads now using these hovercraft vehicles. So it's coming, right?
Yeah.
At the pace at which it evolves really depends on humanity, our acceptance of it, and the technology to support it. So,
So I'm looking forward to the day. It's probably not going to be next year. We'll do another one of these podcasts together next year, hopefully.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think it's going to be our AI agent speaking to another AI agent, but probably 3, 4, 5 years down the road, we probably could have them run a nice podcast for us.
Yeah, I've seen that happen actually, where you get like these digital devices talking to each other and they like speak in weird languages and stuff. It's out there, but you're right. Humans need humans.
Yeah.
And so we're always going to have that. The customer service is always going to be there, and we're always going to need each other for different things.
So let's talk about customer service for a moment. So you and your team are here for a business review.
Yes, we are.
Walk us through what a business review entails.
Yeah, so we call them annual business reviews. And what we're doing is going through what we've accomplished together for the last year, the successes and not so great successes, where we see opportunities. And then we look to the future. How are we going to tackle the market together in the future? What does success look like together?
Yeah.
And how are we going to make that happen? We don't really try to get into too much of the tactics at this point. It's more top-level strategy and where we're taking the business and how we're going to grow to meet your goals to support the different organizations within your companies. And so that's what today is all about when we do our planning. I love it because it gives us a chance to get face-to-face and talk about it together and understand truly where the makeup of that happens. A lot of organic conversations come from those opportunities that you can't just have through email or over the wire, right? So it's super valuable.
Yeah, a shocking amount happens within a year. And with all the technology available to us, right? We've got Zoom, and you've got 100 ways to communicate with us anytime you want. Being here for an annual business review, pretty important.
Yeah,
to
it
get
really,
face
it
to
really
face.
is. It does make a huge difference in how we organize ourselves and that. And we're going to take advantage of AI today as well. So we've got a lot of tools that we're going to be using and predicting and sharing these things. For example, understanding the capacity of all the different locations within the Zeus properties. That's something that we can use this technology for to understand and then come back and rectify the plans based on where we see, not only from a competitive analysis, but market share ownership. And then we also want to look at that whole attribution piece, right? Because not all the organizations are the same. And as you run a company, every company's got its uniquenesses because of its people, its culture, and its styles that it works. That is reflected in how it works with its customers too.
Size and geography make a difference as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So let's maybe end with size and geography, because in the opening I talked about you running a intentionally small, nimble, tight organization.
Yeah.
It sounded very intentional to remain a certain size. I'm curious as to kind of how that happened. Is that still what you want? Can you envision a Rocket Media that's 5 times the size 5 years from now?
I don't think so. So I mentioned earlier that I worked for a large corporation early on before I started Rocket Media. What was great about that is it exposed me to that type of an industry, that type of culture, and the way businesses like that are operated. I wouldn't say it's super military-like, but it has a lot of military-esque type of chain of commands. And I'm totally cool with all that kind of stuff. But I also think that you lose the connection when you have too many in a group. And that's normal, right? I mean,
for sure.
The bigger you get, the harder it is to know everybody's name and their birthdays and things like that. I'm a personal guy. So COVID was hard for me because all my people decided to work remotely. And I'm like, where are you at? I need you in my world, and it's the phone call's not enough. But that's me. I had to learn to adapt. I've never wanted my organization to be more than 50 people. Culturally, when you think about the different paths of how companies grow, it's actually 48 is the magic number for this succession, but I said 50 because that's an even number. So that's the number I told myself I would never let my business go more than from a staffing perspective. Because I want to make sure that we are intimate with our customers, that we have the ability to know about everybody in the group, and that we have that really strong connection. We can do things together and know everybody's name and that kind of thing. And that's important to me as a business. So I've just designed my organization to be that way. Will it ever get bigger than that? As long as I'm around, probably not, because I'm pretty strong suited about that. I mean, when we built our building, we designed it to hold 50 people. So I would hold myself true to that number, right? Yeah. Well, now we're expanding because we have all this remoteness, but we're at 23 today, and I think that's a great number. I'm not so much excited about more overhead as I am about helping customers and make sure we have the right people to support them.
So I love the notion of a small business and knowing everybody's name. I was really concerned about that when I wound up selling my business to help form the foundation of Zeus. What I've come to realize is that we could maintain that tight family feel just on a much larger scale if we're super intentional about it. We have 1,000 employees. Do I know everybody's name? Probably not. But it's aspirational, it's exciting, and we're looking forward to continue to grow it. Keep it at 50, grow it beyond 50. Based on what I know about you, you guys are going to be great.
Yeah.
We thank you so much for everything you do for Zeus, your team does for Zeus, and we look forward to a continued relationship. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
It's great seeing you again.
Yes.
Ben, this has been a fantastic discussion. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, insights, and practical advice for service industry companies navigating digital marketing and growth in an ever-changing world. I'm sure our audience at the 3P's podcast will walk away with some ideas that they can apply immediately to their very own businesses. For those listening, if you want to learn more about Rocket Media and how they're helping service companies build high-performing websites, lead funnels, and digital marketing systems, check out their website at rocketmedia.com. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Zeus 3P's podcast. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with your colleagues in your business. Until next time, thanks for listening to the 3P's podcast. And remember, at Zeus Fire and Security, we're better when we're together.